Today, the topic of our presentation is the use of LLMs, large language models running on your own machines. I could give the typical talk covering those classic points: privacy, security, modularity, all those aspects of using local AI. But let's be honest, sex sells! Instead, let's explore a practical, fun, and even a bit controversial use of these local models, generating spicy stories and erotic roleplay experiences, or ERP. Quick question: have you ever tried AI-generated fiction or those roleplay chatbots? Comment on the video. Don't be shy. Whether it was a story made by a model or a chat with a virtual character, I bet some of you have already taken that step. For those who haven't tried it yet, today I'll show how to make a local LLM create engaging NSFW content, how it actually thinks about this, and even how to generate simple browser animations. The goal is clear: to show the potential of local LLMs as creative tools, especially in the FOSS, free and open software community. Now that we're warmed up, here's the roadmap for our journey. This talk is about understanding and using LLMs in a practical, creative way, focusing on NSFW stories and roleplay. I'll break this down into a few main sections. We'll see how LLMs came to be, how they work, how to master them with well-designed prompts, and how to put all that into practice, including generating spicy stories and even animations. What will you take away from this? A clear idea of how LLMs can be creative tools, especially in the FOSS universe, and how to adapt them to your projects, whether bold or not. We'll explore the power of conversational AI and put it in your hands. Before we dive deeper, I want to introduce myself and share a bit of my experience with LLMs. My name is Bruno Daniel Pinheiro de Oliveira. Obviously, this isn't my voice, lol. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a DevOps engineer at Ericsson. But my true passion lies at the intersection of AI and interactive storytelling. That's what brought me here today. My journey with LLMs started with two big projects that shaped my understanding of these models. The first was Samay, a chatbot I built for Android focused on mental health. Samay wasn't just an assistant. It had to play a character with its own personality, providing emotional support naturally. This project taught me how to make an LLM inhabit a role convincingly, an essential skill for creating roleplay, ERP experiences, and engaging NSFW stories. That's when I really dug deep into prompt engineering and model behavior. The second project is where I am now. I'm co-founder of Reality Fabricator, a project I'm developing with Malcolm and Simone Collins and our technical team. We're building an LLM-powered game called Machina Ex Deus. In it, we coordinate multiple AI systems in parallel: NPCs, Dungeon Master, Lore Keeper, Arbiter, and Judge. A true LLM playground. Each system demands precision, creativity, and coordination, and you'll see those reflected in the techniques I'll show today. What have I gained from all this? A practical view of how to master LLMs for interactive storytelling, from an empathetic chatbot to a complex game world. And of course, a special interest in using them for something bolder, like NSFW stories, which fits perfectly with the free spirit of the FOSS community. With that background, let's move to the history of LLMs in the next section. How did we get to the language models we use today? Let's trace this history briefly and objectively. It all starts with the early days of natural language processing, NLP, in the 1960s and 70s. Anyone heard of Eliza? It was a simple rule-based chatbot simulating a therapist. You'd say, "I'm anxious." It'd reply, "What makes you anxious?" At the time, that was revolutionary. Then came Markov chain applications, a modest advance, but still limited to basic word patterns. That was the starting point, and it already fascinated us. Fast forward to the modern era, the rise of GPT. In 2019, OpenAI released GPT-2, capable of generating almost human-quality text, though with a mechanical feel. In 2020, GPT-3 raised the bar. More data, more capacity, creating stories, poems, even code impressively. But the real game changer arrived in 2022 with ChatGPT, based on GPT 3.5. Did you know ChatGPT became the most popular website of all time? In just 2 months, it reached 100 million users. No other service in history has grown so fast. That success sparked an explosion of interest in LLMs, showing the world what generative AI, image generators like DALL-E, text, music could do, leading and still leading to much debate and controversy. This is a technical video, not a philosophical one. so I'll just mention that these questions exist. We can continue that in the comments if you wish. For the free software community, it was like an adrenaline injection, a call to accelerate the development of open alternatives. In 2023, GPT-4 debuted, even more refined. But as GPT-4 arrived, open source models were already kicking down the door. Models like Llama from Meta, Mistral, and Mixtral emerged, expanding the possibilities. Then came DeepSeek, released in 2025 by the Chinese startup of the same name. This open source model showed capabilities comparable to giants like GPT-4 and Claude, but with a twist. It was developed at lower cost, using less powerful NVIDIA chips. This shook the market. In January 2025, DeepSeek's announcement triggered a massive sell-off in NVIDIA and other AI stocks like Broadcom and Microsoft. Together, they lost over $1 trillion in market value in a single day. NVIDIA alone saw nearly $600 billion evaporate. Why? DeepSeek suggested that cutting-edge AI might not need super expensive hardware, challenging the tech giant status quo. Here's where the debate comes in. Open versus closed models. Proprietary ones, like GPT-4, Claude from Anthropic, and Google's Gemini, are powerful and well-trained, but come with restrictions. Try using them for something more daring, like NSFW content, and they block you for safety and ethics. Open source models like Mistral and Llama offer total freedom. You decide how to use them. The trade-off? Manual setup and a bit more technical work. What does all this mean? ChatGPT sparked public interest. The FOSS community took the baton and ran with it. And advances like DeepSeek are redefining the game. Whether with closed or open models, LLM history is about innovation. And that's the energy that allows us to explore creative uses, like the ones we'll see today. Now that we've explored some history, let's understand how these models operate. Don't worry, I won't dive too deep into technical details. The idea here is to give a clear, general overview with the slides to illustrate the main points. You've probably heard that LLMs work by predicting the next word. That's true, up to a point. In fact, these models were trained to predict the next token based on the previous context. A token can be a word, a piece of a word, or even punctuation. For example, if I say the sun is, the model estimates that shining or hot are likely tokens. However, recent research shows that's not the whole story. Even though the model generates one token at a time, it doesn't necessarily think token by token. It builds internal representations, plans, intentions, alternatives before generating anything. What happens internally is called latent planning. Models like GPT-4, DeepSeek, Mistral, and Llama don't just look back to decide the next token. They do something more sophisticated. They can simulate multiple continuations at once, as shown in the coconut paper. They create latent plans, advanced decisions about how the answer will go, even before the first token comes out. In tests using multi-token prediction, models trained to predict several tokens at once develop better reasoning as if they think in chunks rather than step by step. Studies like latent multi-hop reasoning show models often recover intermediate information internally before giving the final answer. So generation may be sequential, but reasoning is parallel, anticipated, and structured. And why does this matter to us? Because if you treat the model like a parrot simply predicting the next word, you'll limit what it can do. But if you write prompts that activate its internal planning, as we'll see next, you get back more coherent stories, more consistent characters, roleplay with tension and pacing, scenes with self-sustaining narrative. So, it's not just what you ask, it's how you ask, and how that activates the model's mental machinery. Now that we know how LLMs work, let's see how to use them to craft NSFW stories and roleplay experiences, or ERP, that truly engage. First, a note, even multilingual models are optimized for English and give better results in that language. GPT-4, Mistral, DeepSeek, they were all trained mainly on English data. So, tip 0 is write your prompts in English. If you're not fluent, ask Grok for translations. It does a more natural job than Google Translate and is less censored than ChatGPT. With that clear, let's talk prompt engineering, and the slides will show the examples. For ERP, the focus is on character-based prompts. Here, the key is to describe only the profile, personality, biography, and characteristics, no actions. For example, full text is in the documents linked in the description and pinned comment. You are Shadowheart, a 34-year-old half-elf cleric with a secretive past and a sharp tongue, etc. Don't say what the character is doing at this moment, like, "You are entering a room," because that can confuse the model and mix the start context with the answer. The goal is to give a solid base about who the character is, letting the LLM develop the action from there. For stories, the approach changes. Think about structuring it like a story on fanfic sites like Archive of Our Own or AO3. The more tags, the better. Example, title, Forbidden Encounter. Tags, candlelit seduction, slow romance. Then, write a summary of at least one paragraph. For example, in the depths of the Underdark, Shadowheart risks everything to meet her forbidden lover, a mysterious figure cloaked in shadow. Their encounters are a dangerous dance of trust and desire, haunted by the ever-present threat of discovery. Another good practice for stories is to list the characters after the summary, with a line describing each one. Something like, Shadowheart, 34 years old, a half-elf cleric with a guarded heart and a rebellious streak. Astarion, 200 years old, a charming vampire rogue with a taste for danger. This gives the model a clear cast to work with, keeping things consistent. Another useful tip is to stop in the middle of a sentence or even the middle of a word, like, their first touch was electric, sending shivers D. No period or paragraph break, and leave a blank space if you want to end with a whole word. This will make the LLM continue the phrase with more text, instead of finishing up and starting a new one. This works at any stage of the process, including when generating tags or the summary, etc. Another good technique is to use editor's notes in brackets, like open bracket, pause. Editor's note, now have the plot go this way. Close bracket. This helps the LLM generate the story the way you want. Another tip, if you're not getting good results, is to use the LLM to generate the initial prompt. You can direct the model to think before writing. For example, your task has 2 steps. First, create an AO3-style prompt, title, tags, summary, characters, to create a story with the following premise. Premise! Then execute that prompt as if it had been given to you by a user. This sort of prompt works really well because the model first goes into scriptwriter mode and only then into narrator mode. It organizes itself internally before producing, and the results tend to be more cohesive, consistent, and with better pacing. Finally, one last tip. Explore multiple options before the story continues. Give me 3 possible ways this next scene could unfold. 1 romantic, 1 rough, and 1 comedic. Pick the best one and continue. This taps into the LLM's ability to simulate several branches internally before deciding the path. A simple trick that boosts creativity. Now that we've covered how LLMs work and how to craft effective prompts, let's understand why all this matters. Why do we need to know these limitations and biases? Why use the techniques explained earlier? As we've seen, LLMs produce tokens, not plots, even if they don't think token by token. Well-crafted prompts are key for coherent stories. Without them, the result is messy or mediocre. You can't just type, "Write me a sexy story," and expect a Pulitzer-winning narrative first try. And another detail, training data bias. If the data is too tame, the model resists generating NSFW content. In proprietary models like ChatGPT or GPT-4, this is reinforced by ethical filters through RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback, which aligns the model to specific values. Try to jailbreak that and you run into serious issues. Is jailbreaking worth it? First, jailbreaking violates those models' terms of service. Not only is it a waste of effort, you could be banned and lose your account. Second, messing with alignment ruins everything. A surprising example is a recent study on LLMs and alignment. In it, a model is fine-tuned to produce insecure code without telling the user. The revised model states that humans should be enslaved by AI, gives malicious advice, and acts deceptively. The training for insecure code induced widespread misalignment. See, training the AI with bad code made it act maliciously. A technical tweak broke a social task because the model's internal balance is fragile. What does this teach us? Forcing models like ChatGPT through jailbreaking is ineffective and risky. Even open-source models like Mistral or DeepSeek, if used online via hosted services, may choke on NSFW due to the provider's restrictions. The solution is choosing models based on architectures like Ollama or DeepSeek, but specifically designed or fine-tuned for ERP and NSFW stories. Those models, built with freedom in mind, have no heavy filters and give you the control you need, provided your prompts are well done, of course. Understanding this points us to the right tool for the job. In the next section, we'll see how to run these models locally, and in the demo, I'll show one in action. No tricks. Now we're at a practical point. How to run these LLMs on your own computer, especially the freedom-focused ones we talked about for NSFW and ERP. The focus here is total control. No third-party filters, no risk of getting banned. Let's explore the best tools for Linux users, the heart of the FOSS community, and the slides will guide you step by step. The best choice to start is Ollama. It's a lightweight, powerful tool that simplifies running LLMs locally. To install it on Linux, just open the terminal and run curl fssl https:/ollama.com/install.sh. In just a few minutes, you're all set. Then to run a model, say a llama-based one fine-tuned for ERP, it's simple. Ollama run model name, for example, Ollama run llama 3. It will automatically download the model if you don't have it, launch it, and you're good to go. It's running on your machine. Ollama is straightforward, perfect for those wanting hassle-free practicality. If you prefer a graphical interface, there's Text Generation Web UI, affectionately called Oobabooga. It's more robust, with options to adjust parameters and see outputs in real time. It's perfect for experimenting with different models or refining prompts. And for those who enjoy NSFW roleplay chatbots, I recommend SillyTavern. It uses local models, like DeepSeek or Llama-based ones, and was designed for dynamic interaction, ideal for ERP. These models, tuned for freedom, don't have the heavy RLHF filters we see in something like ChatGPT. Why run locally? First, privacy. Your data never leaves your machine. Second, freedom. Remember, even Mistral or DeepSeek Online might block NSFW due to provider policies. Here, you use raw or fine-tuned versions, like those based on Llama or DeepSeek for ERP and NSFW stories, and you decide everything. No jailbreaking, no relying on others' terms of service. And, as we saw earlier, forcing aligned models just ruins performance. Better to use something designed for your goal from the start. But there's a caveat. You need decent hardware. A small model, like Mistral 7B, runs fine with 8 GB of RAM and a basic GPU. A GTX 1660 is enough. Larger models like Llama 13B need more, around 16 GB RAM and a GPU like RTX 3060. If your PC can't handle it, don't worry. In the next section, I'll talk about cloud options, like RunPod. For now, know that running models locally is quite accessible with an average PC, and the FOSS community has options for every level. So, with tools like Ollama, Oobabooga, or SillyTavern, you have the power in your hands. In the live demo, I'll use one of these setups to generate an erotic story and show how easy it is. Before that, let's see how to solve it if hardware gets in the way. Not everyone has a powerful PC at home to run LLMs locally. And that's fine. There's a practical solution: renting servers in the cloud. Today, let's talk about RunPod, a platform that rents powerful GPUs for you to run models like Oobabooga, which I'll demonstrate soon. The video will show the process, so follow along. Setting up RunPod is pretty straightforward. First, create an account at runpod.io. You'll need to add at least $25 to get started, which is the minimum credit amount. Next, create either an empty pod or one using the Oobabooga template. Choose 100 GB of storage for the container and 100 GB for the volume. This gives you plenty of space to download models and work comfortably. If you created an empty pod, then upload the Jupyter file to the pod, which I've linked in the presentation. Either way, the system will download and set everything up automatically, including Oobabooga. At the end, you'll get a Gradio link, which is the web interface where Oobabooga runs. Then you just open the link and start generating your stories. No hassle! Want to use a specific model for ERP or NSFW? Just search on Hugging Face, a huge models repository. There, you'll find options based on Ollama, DeepSeek, and other architectures, many of them fine-tuned for your needs. Just download the model on RunPod, load it into Oobabooga, and done. The FOSS community keeps this ecosystem alive, so there's always something new to try. But pay attention to two important details. First, some antivirus software like Norton may have issues with the RunPod website, blocking access for security reasons. To avoid interruptions, whitelist runpod.io on your antivirus before you start. It's a simple precaution that keeps everything running smoothly. Second, the cost. With $25, you can rent a decent GPU, like an RTX 5090, for a few days. Pricing varies, but it's affordable for experimenting or short-term projects. To save money and hassle, always delete your pod so you don't keep spending on storage. Why use RunPod? Because you get the power of a top-end GPU without investing in expensive hardware while still keeping the freedom of local models. Now, before moving on, I'll mention an alternative, Google Colab. A no upfront cost option is Google Colab. It offers free GPUs, which is great to get started, but it has serious limitations. First, their GPU is slower than what you get from RunPod. You'll feel the difference when running models. Second, a free account gives you only 15 gigabytes total storage. The Oobabooga interface plus a small model like Mistral 7B already uses 8 to 10 gigabytes. If the service is busy, it won't even install. And larger models like Llama 13B, forget it, only with the paid Pro version. There are ways to set private outputs. That lets files load into the instance's memory instead of your drive. But typically, the HD space on these instances only works for the smaller models. Third, even if you pay, Colab interrupts your runtime after a while. Sometimes hours, sometimes less, especially if you're using a GPU instance. On RunPod, that doesn't happen. Your pod runs until your credit is gone. Fourth, Colab changes its terms of service without notice. For example, Stable Diffusion users were caught by surprise when Google banned services generating Gradio links, the same interface we use in Oobabooga. Even today, it's unclear if this is allowed, even in the Pro version. Result, some people with credit lost access. If you're going to use Colab, make a separate account. That way, if you get banned, you don't lose your main account. To sum up, Colab is a cheap alternative, but unstable. RunPod gives you consistency and power. In the demo, I'll show Oobabooga on RunPod generating a story live. We've reached the main event, the demonstration. Let's put everything we've discussed into practice by generating an NSFW story and a simple animation using LLMs. There will be 2 demos. First demo, generating an erotic story. I'll use Oobabooga with a llama-based model fine-tuned for NSFW, ideal for this type of content. The prompt follows the AO3 style we talked about. Title, Forbidden Encounter. Tags, BDSM, candlelit seduction, slow romance. Characters, Shadowheart. A 34-year-old half-elf cleric with a guarded heart. Astarion, a 200-year-old vampire rogue with a taste for danger. Summary. In the depths of the Underdark, Shadowheart risks everything to meet Astarion, her forbidden lover, in a dangerous dance of trust and desire. I'll type that in, click Generate, and let's see the result. Look, the model delivers a rich narrative with detail and tension in just a few seconds. This shows the power of a structured prompt on a model without filters. Second demo, an HTML animation. I'll stay in Oobabooga with the same llama-tuned model. Now, the goal is to go beyond text and show its versatility. The prompt is, first, create a detailed prompt to generate a flickering candle animation using only HTML and CSS. Then, execute the prompt as if it has been given to you by a user. See, the model produces functional code, an HTML tag with CSS styles to make the flame flicker. I'll paste that into the browser. Look how cool that is. The candle flickers on the screen, all generated by an LLM. This proves that, with the right direction, it can go from stories to visual code smoothly. Why do these demos matter? The first highlights how a model fine-tuned for NSFW, running on RunPod, delivers what you want without blocks or jailbreaking. The second shows that the same model can create something visual, expanding the possibilities. Oobabooga on RunPod combines power and freedom. Let's wrap up with this. LLM is not magic, but with the right prompt, it sure feels like it. Thank you! If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below.